How's it going, everybody? Destauch here, and I just thought today would be some time for juicy speculation, especially around the Arbiter, because we have Keith David coming out with a tweet implying that he may be in Halo Infinite, so let's get into it. Now, before we talk about this, I just want to bring up last week's story where I mentioned that Halo Infinite may not be coming out on the last-gen consoles, mainly Xbox One, Xbox Series S, not Series S, Xbox One S. By the way, I hate that naming convention. And Xbox One X. But it seems that 343 have come out and said that no, it will still be coming out on the last-gen consoles. So if you're looking forward to Halo Infinite on your console and you can't get a new console, well, I'm happy for you. You get to play Halo Infinite. So let's get into the next story. Now, this all comes from a tweet that Keith David made in response to a fan asking on Twitter if he will be in Halo Infinite playing the Arbiter. And he basically responded, "I'd have to kill you." So what does this mean? Well, it doesn't mean concretely that he will be in Halo Infinite. And I'd like to bring up another story just to, be the devil's advocate of this situation. Even like when Woods was rumored to come back for the next Call of Duty, people asked the voice actor for Woods, "Oh, are you coming back?" And he was very hush-hush and kind of, vague about it. And, making one-off remarks like this. Now, Woods did end up being in Cold War, but that specific voice actor actually wasn't in the game. They actually replaced him. But the point of the story that I'm trying to make here is that even when actors are very vague like this and kind of comedic about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're involved. They just like to make these jokes on Twitter sometimes. Another example is Stephanie Houston in Death Stranding. A lot of people were wondering if Stephanie Houston would return to work with Hideo Kojima in Death Stranding. And she was actually very vague on Twitter and coy about it, and even implied that she would be working with Kojima. But it turned out that she wasn't in Death Stranding, so I don't really know what happened there. So we don't really know if Keith David will be in the game, but I think that he will be. I think the Arbiter will return, and of course, I don't think they're going to recast him. Now, the Arbiter coming back would actually be really cool, and it kind of leans into this whole idea of something I've been thinking about for Halo Infinite. Now, Halo Infinite kind of presents itself as a very personal story about Master Chief in, a typical epic setting, but a more intimate kind of tale, kind of like Halo Combat Evolved, kind of like Halo 4. But I think that this is actually misleading, and I think that since they're trying to build up this game as a 10-year experience, this game is going to be much larger scale than we initially realized. Now, I think that the Arbiter will be involved, and I think the Swords of San Helios will be involved. I think that Halo Infinite will take its time to set up a bunch of factions, including the Banished, the UNSC, of course, and even the Keepers, I believe, and the Forerunners. And I think that all of this is being very hush-hush, and I think eventually we are going to start hearing about all these other factions. And I think the Swords of San Helios, under the Arbiter, will be in the game. So I think that it is very likely that the Arbiter will be in Halo Infinite, just because of the scale of the game we're talking about here. Now, he likely won't be a playable character. Of course, that could always change in a DLC, but I wouldn't get my hopes up for a Halo 3 level interaction where you're actually playing as him throughout the entire game, as a cooperative partner, or in Halo 2 where you're playing as him throughout half the campaign. I wouldn't expect that, but I would expect him to have a presence and be a leadership role and a faction leader. And the Arbiter would be a very natural character to have in Halo Infinite. I mean, Halo 5 ended with Master Chief reunited with the Arbiter, so it'd be pretty disappointing if that reunion was just cut off and we never hear from the Arbiter again. Of course, Halo Infinite is set years later, but I just think, as a story, when you present somebody at the end, they'll be fleshed out in the next game. And of course, we've already had the Arbiter fleshed out, but we haven't known the Arbiter very well as a leader of the Swords of San Helios, and I think it would be really interesting to get into his head and his ideas on how the Sangheili should be governed outside the boundaries of the Covenant. And, it could even be a bad thing. We know that the Sangheilis are actually a very warrior-like race, so maybe there could be some tension between him and maybe Master Chief. We know that Oni is no friend of the elites, and even though the Arbiter does have a light friendship with the Master Chief, I could see his faction not being overtly hostile, but being wary of humans just because of how they've treated other elites like the Shipmaster. But we'll see in Halo Infinite. I am really excited for Halo Infinite just to see all of the little lore things they're going to have in that game. I mean, if it's going to be like Destiny, like a 10-year experience, that may be off-putting to a lot of people. But to me, I think it opens a lot of doors for lore expansion, and we get to see more things in-game rather than in external material like the books. But anyways, this was Destauch. What do you think of all this? Do you think Keith David will be in Halo Infinite as the Arbiter? And what do you think of the role he'll play in it? Will he be a leadership role or a playable role? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Now remember, if you liked the video, please like it, and if you really liked it, try subscribing. This was Destauch, and I'll see you in the next one. Destauch out.